big news.
I'm listening. What do you got?
Critics and parents agree. Paw Patrol, the mighty movie, is hilarious, action-packed, and fun for the whole family.
How do you like me now? That's what I'm talking about.
Paw Patrol, the mighty movie, rated PG, now streaming on Paramount+.
Hey gang, Scott Klopfenstein here from The Scholars, Littlest Man Band, Real Big Fish, most likely is what you know. My parents also, they had a wild night at one point, and then in 1977, 9 months later, I was born. So originally from there. And you're listening to my weekly mixtape with Brian Colburn. And this is part 1. I'm expecting part 2 and 3.
Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. Joining me tonight as guest curator is Scott Klopfenstein, an amazing musician whose resume includes The Scholars, Real Big Fish, and the Littlest Man Band. Scott, thank you so much for joining me on the show, man.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm super glad to be here. This is going to be fun.
I can't wait. Now, I want to start by asking you the same question I ask all my guests.
Sure.
Scott, what does the word mixtape mean to you?
I mean, it's how I discovered most of the music that I discovered when I was a kid. It's how you show a girl you like her. It's how you make friends. It kind of was, I mean, we always had it as it was an art form. And you had to have a dual tape deck, obviously. And then you get to write and create the J card that went inside, call the J card because it was in the shape of a J.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, it took days sometimes to really put together a proper mixtape, depending on who it was for, So it was a really fun, creative process. And I don't know if there was ever a greater compliment than getting a mixtape.
Not for me, there wasn't.
You know what I mean? It was like if somebody gave you a mixtape, you felt like you really meant something to that person. So with friends, it was like, whoa, this person's really cool. And you could roll the dice, and really turn somebody off too. They'd be like, oh, I don't know if we're mixtape. It's like, oh, I mean, it's just a friend mixtape,
Yeah, there
like
you
a
go.
foot massage. It's just like, it means something.
Well, tonight, you and I are going to work together to craft the ultimate ska punk mixtape. And given your years on the scene, touring and recording with the bands I mentioned earlier, we're probably going to talk about some of those tonight as well. I'm very curious to know, what were you looking for in the songs that you're bringing to the conversation tonight?
No, I mean, that's a great question. I think more will be revealed as we go. You know what I mean? Yeah, we'll see. I feel like I'm I'm going to be grasping in the dark, although I know where I want to start because it's kind of where I started as a kid to kind of get into music that wasn't pop music, especially. But yeah, that kind of floated my boat. And then, I mean, it kind of depends on what you pick next. And then I'll go from, I have no plans. I'm open to the experience, and we'll try not to make it a real boring podcast of me going, I have a friend I did a podcast for, and her advertisement for it was me doing a lot of those. It's like talking with Scott Klopfenstein is always riveting. And then it was me going, I was like, thanks, Jen. But she's an old dear friend, so it was a good stand.
Well, I will make sure we don't do that tonight. So let's get down to business. As I mentioned, Scott and I are going to be curating the ultimate ska punk mixtape, and we're going to use that old cassette deck approach.
Beautiful.
Scott, as my special guest, will begin side A with his first song choice, and then I'll add a song that I feel best follows up that choice. We'll then flip-flop choosing songs until we've mapped out 10 songs for side A. We'll then give our mixtape a proverbial flip, and we'll map out side B, only this time I'll kick things off with Scott choosing second. Our overall goal for this episode is to craft the best ska punk mixtape possible through only 20 songs. And at the end of the show, you can take our conversation to the next level by visiting the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com and giving our final mixtape a listen via the embedded playlist. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, please consider becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. And a few of our Patreon members chimed in with what they feel would best kick off a ska punk mixtape, and I want to shout out a few of those. Ben from the Too Vague podcast chimed in with the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones' Where'd You Go?
Mm-hmm.
Mally Hart chimed in with Less Than Jake's Great American Sharpshooter.
Mm-hmm.
Cactus Pete chimed in with the Mighty Boss Tones' The Impression I Get. And Kevin Seeker chimed in by saying he wanted to kick things off with something early, so he went with Madness, One Step Beyond.
Yeah.
Also, some of the fellow mixtapers who follow me on social media have chimed in with their ideal opening tracks for a ska punk mixtape. And just to give a small sample of what some of those picks included, we're talking about Goldfinger's Here in Your Bedroom, Catch-22's Dear Sergio, Bully Rag's Jump Up in a Fashion, Five Iron Frenzy's Oh Canada, Less Than Jake's Johnny Quest Thinks We're Sellouts, MC Lars' This Gigantic Robot Kills, The Planet Smashers' Blind, Ruts Staring at the Rude Boys, The Skints' Mindless, The Specials' Little Bitch, Sponge Kicking Pigeons, Streetlight Manifesto's Point and Counterpoint, and Sublime's Santeria. And remember, you can always connect with me at all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. So, Scott, with all that musical food for thought out in the atmosphere, I'm officially pressing the record button on our mixtape. The floor is yours. Why don't you dive into the song that you are choosing to kick off side A?
For me, it's got to start with 3 Minute Hero by The Selector. I feel like this may have been the first ska tune I ever heard. I actually heard it outside of my friend Tyler Jacobs's. It was the first time I heard a song that I knew, like, I was like, well, like I'd heard English Beat on the Ferris Bueller's Day Off soundtrack, you know, but it's like when you hear it in a soundtrack, you kind of, I don't know why it sits in a different world. It's, you know, it helps tell the story or what have you, but I was sitting on the stairs waiting for my friend Tyler Jacobs, his older brother, Christian, who actually winds up being Christian Jacobs, who is the Bat Commander from the Aquabats.
Nice.
To take us to go to Toilet Paper, our friend's house. And he said, he came home from skating and he's like, all right, I'll take you guys in a minute. And we sat on the stairs where we could see into his room, and he sat there and he put on, I think it was a mixtape actually, but he put on a tape. And the first thing I heard was 3 Minute Hero by The Selector. He then proceeded to listen to a whole A side of a mixtape and just sat on his bed and stared while we sat there and waited for him. It was the weirdest thing one of the weirdest things I've ever seen anybody do. But I heard 3 Minute Hero and I was like, what is this? Like, what is happening here? Which it just like lit me up. You know, I mean, it's like, and then not long after, well, we'll get into that. But 3 Minute Hero, it's just a great chorus. It's a great energy song. 3 Minute Hero. I love The Selector.
I love the way you're starting things off. We're kind of going a little bit old school here to kick things off before you get into that 90s style. And I think what I'm going to do is follow you up using that same mindset. I'm going to go with a band that I've seen perform with Real Big Fish in the past, and a song that Real Big Fish has covered by this band and this exact song on your 2009 album, Fame, Fortune, and Fornication. I'm going to go with the original, the English Beat, Twist and Crawl. I feel like that groove is truly that two-tone ska sound that really gets you moving, it gets you dancing, it gets you grooving, but there's still a heft to that song. There's still a rock element, and you can hear when you get into that third wave of ska where the influence came from. And I feel like the English Beat, even though they veered a little bit into the new wave sound when they did Save It for Later, when you listen to 1980s I Just Can't Stop, you truly hear that ska vibe throughout the whole album. And I feel like this is a very influential album. So what I'd like to ask you is, because you guys recorded a cover of this song, obviously it meant something to you guys musically to create your own version of it. So I'd love to hear what you think about this one.
English Beat, amazing. Again, we're talking about Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Save It for Later. I mean, the interesting thing is, it's like, I'm going to most likely throughout this list, it's going to be like When I Got to Me, because we toured with Dave a bunch. And the first time I met Dave was when Dave Wakeland, was when he was doing some re-recording of stuff. Or maybe we did play a show together. I can't recall. Oh no, they opened for us at a place called the Galaxy Theater here in Southern California for something. And I was like, what is the English Beat doing opening for us? This is insanity. Like, this doesn't make any sense, which is my feeling for every time one of these incredibly important seminal ska bands opened for us. It was just stupid. Didn't make any sense. Still doesn't. But meeting Dave, and like, he's such a nice dude. And then he was like, hey, I'm re-recording some stuff. Would you guys want to come play horns on it? And we were like, yeah. And so we went to his home and we, met his wife and like hung out at his house and joked around and learned these tunes and worked. And like, then we started this real friendship with Dave and his band, and like, just the nicest and most incredible person. One of the things I think was always important to us in Real Big Fish was we were students as much as we could be without the internet of ska music. And the best way we got exposed to like who they were influenced by and what they knew about it was, getting to meet Selector and getting to meet Dave and the English Beat, and Neville Staple from the Specials, and talk about what that two-tone era, that second wave, that whole thing was like. And it was not only humbling, but it was also, they appreciated what we were doing. And so a lot of these bands, they not only hold a special place in lighting up my mind creatively, but also in then like sort of passing a torch in a way to this incredible culture and musical style, which, I don't know if there's anything more valuable than having the people who were the early custodians of this beautiful form of music to then say, hey, we see you, we appreciate you, and we give you the nod. So it's a deep like love and admiration in my heart for the English Beat as well as the Selector, for sure.
All right. And now we toss it back to you to follow up with track 3.
So, I feel like I'm doing this chronologically in my mind because I think it's important. It's also just any kind of structure I think is going to help. Party at Ground Zero by Fishbone.
Nice.
Because once I had said, oh my gosh, that music is amazing, my friend Tyler, who was then like, well, let me get you some Fishbone. And I was like, okay. And so he got me Fishbone. And then all of a sudden, like Fishbone does, my mind was blown even further. Because not only was it incredible ska music, but it was soul and funk and unmistakably just unbelievable musicianship with energy that was incredible. And they were from LA, which was like everybody that I had listened to before was all from the UK. I was like, oh, ska happens here. And so it's like, it was like, oh, all of a sudden. And that was actually my introduction to the fact that the ska scene was something that was happening locally as well. But that party, that energy, the fun of where, I listened to a lot of Weird Al Yankovic when I was a kid.
Of course.
And the tongue-in-cheek, the darkness and the light that Weird Al plays with, I was like, oh, it's in ska music too. Where you've got this thing and you're dancing and it's great, but you're talking about politics and inequality and just all sorts of stuff. So it was, Party at Ground Zero. What a great tune.
It's funny you mentioned Weird Al Yankovic because that was something I always felt like I heard that sense of humor coming through in Real Big Fish's music. And that's probably a reason I gravitated to it because I, being the same age as you, grew up with Weird Al as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. I love the fact that we're going chronologically here, but now I want to throw a bomb into this.
Sure.
Jump way ahead, completely leapfrog the 90s third wave ska scene. And I want to go all the way to 2012.
Okay.
And I want to give love to a band that was originally from Boston, but now they're based out of Amsterdam because I feel like this song coming out of Fishbone musically just works really well. And I'm going to go with Jaya the Cat. Here Comes the Drums from 2012's new international sound of hedonism. I feel like bringing in that newer vibe with that extra reggae feel is a little bit of a left turn, but it still definitely holds that attitude that Fishbone brought to the table. So yes, I
Right.
totally leapfrogged the entire 90s third wave, but I know we're going to come back to it. I'm not worried at all. But I feel like this song definitely has that vibe that pays homage to the 80s sound that we're talking about here, that second wave ska sound, but
Yeah.
also takes us into the future, because there are a lot of bands that have come out in the last 15 years that are carrying the torch for ska music now. And I feel like being able to bounce back and forth between the two, there's still a musical conversation at play here.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. So that makes me want to move to sort of that same thing with this great band called Frighteners and their song Always. It's the title track off of their 2022 release. Unbelievable. Unbelievable band. I'd have yet to meet these cats. I discovered them. I was putting on a Slint, and I always have my my music on continue. So it's like after I finish an album, it just goes into shuffle of whatever stuff that I'm not listening to. And the next thing that came on was Frighteners. And I was like, what am I listening to right now? Like, what is this? And it was soulful and it was kind of throwback. And yet at the same time, like still like, yeah, it was just great. And I think this band, they're so groovy. I mean, I listen to a lot more like reggae style soul these days because I'm a 46-year-old man.
You and me both.
Right? Well, it's like, I mean, like, I still love my ska punk and my like more upbeat stuff, but while I'm dusting or cleaning the kitchen or, you know, sitting and staring out a window, it's like, you know, it's a lot more of the Frighteners they're on regular rotation in our house.
All right. Well, then I'm going to follow that up with something that's been on regular rotation in my house for a few years now, because it's my youngest daughter's favorite band. Now, while most fathers who have 10 and 14-year-old daughters, you would think that it would be the Taylor Swifts of the world that would be consuming the music in a household. But in my house, it's Amy Interrupter and the Interrupters playing all the time. My 10-year-old knows every word to every Interrupter song, and one of her favorites is She's Kerosene. I got to take both of my girls to the Stone Pony in New Jersey in Asbury Park, and during She's Kerosene, we're up in front, and they blow the confetti into the crowd. My daughter's sitting on my wife's shoulder, screaming along to every word. It was that first moment where I got to look at my daughter at a concert, totally engulfed in the music, and I kid you not, the hair on my arm is standing up as I'm telling you this story, and I'm getting like a little choked up because seeing my kids love music the way I do is a beautiful thing. And the fact that we get to share love for a band together, where it's not just like my 14-year-old, she brings me a lot of stuff that she listens to, which is regular top 40, and I'm fine with it because we are finding some common ground. But when there's something where I bring it to them and they're like, yeah, Dad, this ain't that bad. You actually know what you're talking about here. It really warms my heart. So I'm going to follow up Frighteners with the Interrupters' She's Kerosene from 2018's Fight the Good Fight.
All right. That's a good one. Let's see. Ooh. Oh, man. And now I'm like, I feel like I should have certain things memorized a little better. Because for me, it is I do that thing where I'm like, I'm always trying to find that space between what I'm digging and then what my kids dig, right? Like, and oh God, what song is it? Hold on. This is where I gotta like, well, so I like Major Lazer because of like the bringing in of the reggae, and my kids dig it because it's also got a modern thing to it. So I would say the 2009 Major Lazer, Can't Stop Now.
And that's definitely leaning into that reggae sound a little bit too.
Yeah.
And it's strange because we've been talking now, we're almost through side A, and we've been living kind of in the reggae second wave sound for a lot of this mix, which is very interesting because a lot of people, when you talk ska, because of the explosion of the third wave, I assumed most people, because when they chimed in, a lot of people chimed in third wave.
Totally.
And the fact that we're going outside of that a little bit, I think is amazing because there is a lot more than the third wave, and that's zero disrespect to the third wave.
Yeah.
So what I think I'm going to do is bring in some third wave here with one of the bands that was a label mate with you on Mojo Records. And it's a band that I'm a huge fan of. One of the best producers in punk rock music. I'll say it hands down. I'm going to go with Goldfinger, and I'm going to go off of the album Hang Ups, and I'm going to go with Superman. Because to me, that song is just a ska punk anthem. And I love the fact that Mike Herrera, who's from MXPX, but also plays bass now in Goldfinger, has recorded an acoustic version of the song. And what I find fascinating is that you don't hear the ballad in it until you heard him reimagine it. And it's like, wow, this song works both ways and it's perfect.
Yeah. Oh, John is such a great songwriter, and like, he's such a great craftsman as far as like producing and writing. And I mean, I learned so much from that guy. I mean, not only do I owe him my career, because he was the one that helped get Real Big Fish signed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we were playing this show at a place called The Barn in Riverside in Southern California. And John came to the show. And I remember, like, I don't know where anybody else was, but I was sitting at the merch table and I was selling merch at my turn and signing stuff. And this dude comes up to me, he goes, "Hey man, you guys are really good. I was wondering if I could get your phone number to, like, you know," and I'm like a 17-year-old kid, and he's like a grown man. And I'm like, I give you my manager's number. Like, I don't know you. And so he's like, "Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense." I was like, "Yeah, cool." So yeah, he was the one. He was like, "You guys are great. Like, you need to be signed. You need to be like doing this. Like, you're great." And it was just like, John was our champion and got us signed on Mojo and got us connect. Yeah, John. And so, I mean, I talk to John relatively a few times a year, and, you know, see him around the holidays and stuff like that. He's a good friend, and we have a lot of similar friends and stuff like that. And he's just down for the cause. He's down to help people. He loves ska music. He loves punk music, and he loves music. Like, he wants to like participate in a positive and useful way. And, he never stops. I mean, he's always sounds a little out of breath. He's like, "Hey, stop, it's John." And that's how because he's so full of like exuberance that you're like, wow, it's exciting. Being around John is very exciting.
I can imagine that, because every album, when I see an album that's coming out that he's produced, I will buy it sight unheard, because I know what he brings to his productions. And my daughter recently discovered, I'm using quote marks when I say discovered, but about a year and change ago, she's like, "Dad, I just discovered this new artist, Avril Lavigne." And I chuckled, because I'm like, "Sweetie, Avril Lavigne was around 20 years ago." And she goes, no, new song. So I looked it up and I'm like, John Feldman produced this. I went to the store. I said, "Let's go buy it for you." And you knew it was going to be great, because what he brings to the table, he has an ear for what the songs need. And it was easily Avril Lavigne's best album since her first one. I loved it.
Yeah, John's been working with Avril for a while, and like, they have a really great relationship. She knows how to embody his writing, and like, he knows how to write for her, and that kind of thing is always like incredible.
Well, you've got one last song for side A.
Well, then, I mean, let's keep the energy going. And I got to go with the Bosstones. It was brought up, but going kind of like 93. Don't Know How to Party Bosstones, which is where I discovered the Bosstones with Someday I Suppose.
All right. Yes.
You know, because it was also like, I don't know that I had ever heard ska like that. You know what I mean? Like, the Bosstones were something else, you know? It was that someday, I suppose. You know, it was almost like the closest thing I could think that was like that would be like Rocket from the Crypt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Rocket has horns, but they're not by any stretch of the imagination a ska band. But it was just like this, like, oh. And it wasn't oi. You know what I mean? It wasn't Up Ivy. It wasn't that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I will always, again, Bosstones, special place in my heart. Just groundbreaking and like eye-opening and melodically unmistakable. Like, knew how to work melody and rhythm in a way that was just their own thing, you know? And that comes a lot from like Nate, the guitar player at the time, and Dennis, the trumpet. I mean, like Hollywood, all those cats were like, Joe Kittle. Just what a great band. What a great band. And Dickie, just the funnest front man you ever saw.
And What a vocal style. So gravelly.
Oh, yeah. And then Ben just dancing. I mean, like, that's the funny thing is I remember the first time seeing the Bosstones and being like, oh, what is that guy's deal? And I was like, wait a second. And then I rewatched the video and I was like, oh, he's not playing. Huh. Okay. Yeah. And it was Ben, their tour manager.
Really? And he just became kind of the dancing.
Ben started as their tour manager. Yeah.
That's a great legacy to have, though. What did you do for the last 30 years? I danced. Rock and roll, baby.
Danced and tour managed, you know? I mean, he had people work in front of house and you know, all the sound and everything. And he's like, oh, I guess I can just dance. And I mean, eventually, yeah, but it's pretty funny.
Well, you scooped me on the band. I had 2 songs that I was bouncing back and forth with. Obviously, The Impression I Get, because that was the one that really exploded on the scene, and The Rascal King, which I also loved, both from 1997's Let's Face It, great album. And then when my cover song Itch gets into me, I could have even used their cover of Detroit Rock City from the Kiss My Ass album that came out, the Kiss tribute, because they just slayed that one as well, because those guys could rock on top of the punk, on top of the ska. So,
I mean, you even could have gone, where did you go?
Yep.
I mean, any of these bands, you can put a million stinking songs on this thing. Yeah. I feel like I'm like, oh God, what am I thinking now?
Well, I have the distinct pleasure of getting to close out side A. You're going to be closing out the night with closing out side B, but I promise you, I'm not picking this song to kiss your ass. I promise you I'm picking this song because it is truly one of my favorites. And I am going to go off of Real Big Fish's 1996 Turn the Radio Off album.
Oh,
and I am going with Beer.
All right.
This song is everything I love about ska. I will tell you the story. We were down, my buddies and I decided to take a road trip down to Wildwood, New Jersey to go to the boardwalks for the day. Jersey Shore. Drove 2.5 hours down to the Jersey Shore. We spent the whole day on the beach, spent the night on the boardwalk. And at the end of the night, about 10 minutes before we're going to leave, we go up to one of these, the spin the wheel booths.
Sure.
Threw $1 down. I placed my quarters. They spun the wheel and I won. And I got to pick out, it was a CD. Any CD I wanted. And I picked out Turn the Radio Off, and we listened to it 6 times in a row, driving back home that night. And I instantly fell in love with the band and the music. And this song was the one that jumped out at me immediately. And then it even got more amplified when I saw it in Basketball in the late 90s, the Trey Parker and Matt Stone movie. So I would love to hear what this song meant for you guys as a band and how it, I don't want to say defined a career, but I know Sell Out was the big radio hit, but Beer was always felt like, to me, the fan favorite, seeing Real Big Fish at least a dozen times over the years. This to me always felt like the song of the night.
Well, yeah. And it's funny too. I was just talking with somebody about this as I'm like scrolling through. I'm trying to think. I'm like, oh, what else is there? You know, that song was never a single.
Yeah.
We never put it out on the, I mean, like, arguably, like, our most popular song ever. And, like, somehow it just, I mean, it just, nobody, it's baffling to me. I don't understand how that worked out, but it just did. And I was actually just talking with Aaron about, we've both said this to each other, and I think we've maybe said it publicly as well. It's a weird thing to have anything you've done considered a hit. It's just weird. I mean, I think Aaron and I both play this game, and we were actually talking to Chris from Less Than Jake about this whole thing too, where it's like people just say hit, and then in your mind you compare it to hits, you know, and you're like, well, that's a hit. This is not a hit. And it's like, we could go on to Spotify and see what the streaming numbers are, and it's a hit. By no stretch of the imagination is it a hit. But it's a weird thing to see a song that you wrote with your friends and played in front of 50 people, and we're so stoked. We're just like, oh, dude, 50 people. And then watch that number go. It's humbling. It's exciting. It's terrifying. There's a little bit of and I mean, I think this isn't
news to anybody when it comes to like bands and like if they have a couple songs that are like their big thing. And we're lucky that most of our fans have a pretty decent love and respect for a majority of our catalog, you know, and they want to hear a lot more. But let's face it, like the crowd that never screams the loudest is the when they scream for beer or maybe Take On Me or maybe Sell Out. But it's like, it was one of those things where there would be times where that's all people wanted to hear. And so we would, because we don't play by anyone's rules, play it 9 times in a row. And nobody got tired of it. And it became funny and tragic all at the same time. And it's like you're trying to like screw with people, but then you can't because they just love the song so much. And you're like, well, this is, come on. But what an honor for anybody to say anything we do or did, or, you know, it means as much as some of our songs and beer in particular has meant to people. Yeah, that's a rare gift because I don't think it's just that the song is good. I think for some reason we wrote it and it hit people at the right time in the right way. We were so fortunate to be, you know, some of it, what is luck? It's like preparation meets timing or something like that. Yeah, we were just, it was right. And what a blessing. What an honor. Like something to just be like eternally grateful for and like constantly like try never to take it for granted, which is, of course, like impossible because we're all egomaniacal sociopaths. But it's rad. It's great. I'm just rattling now. But it's what an absolute honor and pleasure to have made something that meant so much to so many people.
It truly does. And that, Mixtapers, concludes side A of our ska punk mixtape, which kicked off with the Selectors' 3-Minute Hero, the English Beat, Twist and Crawl, Fishbone, Party at Ground Zero, Jaya the Cat, Here Comes the Drums, Frighteners, Always, The Interrupters, She's Kerosene, Major Lasers, Can't Stop Now, Goldfinger's Superman, The Mighty Mighty Bosstones, Someday I Suppose, and Real Big Fish, Beer. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Now, before we flip our proverbial mixtape over to side B, Scott, I'd like to take a minute to talk about the Littlest Man Band.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In 2022, you remastered and re-released your 2004 album, Better Bookends. I'd like to go back to when you were recording that album, because at the time you were in between Real Big Fish's Cheer Up and We're Not Happy Until You're Not Happy. And musically, This was a really big departure from what you were doing with Real Big Fish. So what I love about the album is the jazzy contemporary pop sounds that you kind of fused with the hints of rock, punk, and the brass elements that you were used to hearing in Real Big Fish. When you were writing this music, was there a mindset that you were in when you were saying, you know what, this isn't Real Big Fish, but this is definitely me, and I need to make this happen? How did that all come together?
Really organically. I mean, I don't force anything. Like, I just don't believe in it. I have so many different sounds that go around in my head and influences and stuff like that, as many musicians do. But yeah, I feel like I just heard this thing and kind of followed it. And then when I got my friends together to do it, it started to kind of take this other shape. I mean, I picked people in particular for what I knew they were capable of. And once we had like 4 tunes or 5 tunes to start with. And then like, once I heard the band play those, then all of a sudden my wheels started really turning. And it was like, just everything else wrote itself so quickly that I just hear things really big, and I hear things generally all done in my head. And it's just kind of the way it's always been. But that was just how it sounded in my head. None of it was really intentional. There were times in Real Big Fish where I would want to take certain chances or try certain things. And Aaron was like, yeah, I don't think so. And I was like, okay, no, it's no problem. And I was lucky enough to get Drunk Again and Average Man recorded. And I kind of felt like those two kind of told me that I was heading in a direction where there was a little more, just a different thing than like Real Big Fish was focused on. And
I mean, I didn't really expect anybody to care. I operate from that perspective most of the time, is it's like, I got to do what I got to do. I can't be worried if anybody cares. And we were very fortunate that people cared and still do. I mean, we didn't know if anybody would care if we remastered and re-released Better Bookends. And it's amazing that people have. I mean, we've sold a ton of the vinyl, and like, the numbers on all the Spotify, on all the streaming services shot up, and all sorts of stuff. It's been, I don't know. I come back to this thing where it's like, I always keep this thing in the back of my mind. It's not how many, it's that anyone at all cares. Like, I got to do this thing, because if I don't, I go nuts. And so if it connects or means something to one or a couple people, then great. Then I've done my job. But I have for some unbeknownst reason, been lucky enough to create things that more than just a couple people like. I mean, I'm not going to stop. I don't know how. I tried for a little while. I stopped making music for about 3 years when I had kids at first, and my wife begged me to get back to work. She was like, "Please, you're a miserable human being." I was like, "I know." I think what it winds up being, to make a really short story long, I'm just trying to make the music I want to hear that I don't yet. It's like, I would love to sound like so many bands that I do enjoy. Oh my gosh. But they're already doing that. I'm a huge Queens of the Stone Age fan. Love Queens.
Love them.
Just
yeah.
Great band. And I'm always like, I just feel like I'm never write anything like that. And then I had somebody point out recently that like, your songs, your melodies and stuff, there are times where it's really Queens of the Stone Age. And I was like, yay. I was like, good, great. Because I always feel like I don't get it there. And now I hear it a lot in a lot of the things I'm doing. But yeah, I'm just trying to make something that I don't hear, because I don't want to recreate something that already has been. And I'm trying to surprise myself more than anything, and see if I can like really figure out how I expose the deeper human parts of myself in order to make other people feel comfortable to expose the deeper human parts of themselves, to create more catharsis and community.
Your mindset to music is the exact same mindset I have with this podcast. I'm doing this podcast because I love it, and I'm not happy when I don't do it. But if people are listening, that is a bonus, and that just puts a bigger smile on my face each and every week. And I'll also agree with you that I don't know if I could hear the song Always Sane on a Real Big Fish album. I feel like it works perfectly as a Littlest Man Band song, because it is a departure from Real Big Fish, but I can understand why this album needed to happen. The only critique I will give is that, being a person who owns 4,500 CDs and has been searching for Better Bookends on CD for the better part of 2 decades, I was really hoping that there would have been a CD pressing with the latest remaster. That's a very small quibble on my part. Very, very small.
I understand. Yeah, it's not there. We haven't seen the demand for CD yet.
I understand.
I may have a box or two somewhere that I'll look for.
That would be amazing. That has been a bucket list check off that I've been looking to do for now 2 decades. And it's literally, I have the album digitally, but it's not the same because I have a full CD stereo setup that I like to, it's my listening area. And that's kind of like I'm a guy from the 90s. As much as I love vinyl and I had cassettes and mixtapes growing up, CDs is where I fell into my element. But more importantly, back to the Littlest Man Band. The band is back in action now.
Yeah.
And I'd like to talk about some of the new tunes that you've released over the most recent time period. The first being a song called Just Like You, which is a jazzy rocker that has, and I mean this as an absolute compliment, a touch of the 90s swing revival and almost a contemporary pop sound to it.
I fall in love again, she's gotta be just like you. Graceful and delicate, 'cause nothing less will do. A certain something hidden behind bright eyes, a sweetest tenderness that never dies. And now I realize that I've been looking in all the wrong places, looking at all the wrong faces, when all I really want is all I really want is you. When I fall in love
It just works so damn well. It's, dare I say it, it's my favorite Littlest Man Band song ever, and it's your newest single.
Oh, wow. Thank you so kindly.
I only have weeks to digest this song, and it instantly rocketed to the top. It's just such a powerful, powerful tune.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I wrote that
with the original Littlest Man Band, and we never got around to recording it. So it was like, when we were like, what are we recording next? I was like, well, let's do one of the newer ones and let's do one of the older ones. And I kind of feel like there's some stuff that we never got to release back then that I think I really want to get to. But it's a song actually I wrote about my wife before we were even dating.
Wow.
And it actually, she came to see me at a show. She came to see the Littlest Man Band play at a show in Long Island. And she saw it. And then my drummer went up to her afterward and he's like, you know that last song we played? Yeah. That's about you, you know. And she was like, oh. And so she went home actually that night and broke up with her boyfriend.
Wow. That's the way to do it, man. That's epic style right there.
Yeah. You know, it was, I mean, I feel bad for her ex. I didn't mean to, I didn't mean to write it that good. Yeah. And so it was like, for my wife, I also wanted to record it. And we had such fantastic musicians on those recordings. I mean, we had Tony Austin, who plays in Kamasi Washington's band, Dennis Ham, who plays with Thundercat, Ed Campworth, who plays in the Long Beach Dub All-Stars, and then the Littlest Man Band horn section, which is a cat named Edgar Guadiana, who he's also in a band called Twin Temple, which is a satanic doo-wop band, and then Tavis Wirtz from Real Big Fish, and then a guy named Adam Liebrecht Johnson, who is one of my trombone players, and then John Avila from Oingo Boingo and the first two Real Big Fish albums produced it. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And with that track, you also had a single, Sidle Up, which has that balance of that contemporary pop delivery with a modern energy across the whole song.
Then we sleep in smart feet, take a walk through the sand, over rock, over river. And when we wake, the short work of mistake is as if it's never been. So you remove the dust from the ledge and buy the books that fall out of place. And I go out the window to cling to what I know is there over again, over again, over again, and sail at the sidled up next to me, close enough to be seen and still safe, while I went out the window to dangle my legs off the fire escape.
Is that kind of the style you go for in the Littlest Man Band, or is that just a coincidence? Because these songs, like I said, and when I say contemporary pop, it's weird to say Frank Sinatra, but it's that element of cool with the delivery. It's a suave delivery over this music that is a little heavier and a little more weighty. So it's a really cool balance.
It's just the way it comes out. Yeah. I don't know. I try not to overthink this stuff because if I do, I'll never get anything done. I mean, like right now we're in the midst of demoing another song to record, and I've been overthinking it because I've had it for a while. I'm not even done with the lyrics yet. And we've already demoed it like 7 times. And it's like this final time, we're like, okay, I think this is probably it. But I mean, we had to play with a bunch of tempos and weirdness. And I was like, I think I'm overthinking it. And Vince Walker, who's my right hand, who's just kind of, he's there to keep me from going insane and also just unbelievably talented. And he goes, I think this is it. And I'm like, are you sure? He's like, I think we're good. And I go, okay. Because I need someone there to tell me to stop sometimes. Because this is an idea machine that never turns off. So, I mean, we've got a good, probably 16 tunes to record.
Nice. Very cool.
Just finding the time and energy and money, most of the problem.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, leave the overthinking to the podcasters like me, because that's what I do. I sit around and think about this stuff all the time. You just keep cranking out great music. Now, along with the Littlest Man Band, you've been keeping busy in other avenues as well. You re-recorded as a solo the song that you did, Average Man, with Real Big Fish. You re-recorded that.
I just became a member of a club known as the Bumbling Fools. Watching the game and the best things in life is the motto and the rule. So if you can open up your heart and hear me out just for tonight, baby, I've got something to prove to you. I gotta show you I can do it right. Get out, don't wanna see you again. Maybe we could still be friends. I know that I'm gonna go and screw it up in the end, but that's okay, 'cause I'm your average man.
You also reunited with Real Big Fish members Aaron Bennett, Rylan Steen, and Dan Regan on a song No Hope by Loser. Can you talk about how that track came together?
Well, Chris Grau is a friend of mine and a dear friend, actually. And so when he asked, I just said yes. Well, and I sang on a few of his tunes. And one of them is the one is it No Hope that's in the Clerks 3?
Yes.
Yeah, it's he's just I love Chris's stuff, and he tour managed me and babysat me when I did some stuff going out. I need a lot of hand holding. And he's just I think he's a great songwriter, and he's just got this fun approach to things. So when he asked me, I was like, absolutely. I mean, my manager was obviously like, was there a contract? And I said no. And he's like, do you want me to fail? But Chris is great, and he's toured with Real Big Fish. He toured with Real Big Fish before in a band, the Maxies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys. He's been around. He shoots like every music video in the ska scene lately. And he's just a mensch.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to ask one question because of your connection that you've stayed in touch with Aaron over the years. I know he's come on one of your live streams that you do on Twitch. I know you haven't been in the band for a long time, but the band has been quiet since the Life Sucks, Let's Dance album and tour that happened in 2018. Has there been any movement? Is Real Big Fish still active? Are they working on new stuff? Do you know anything that, again, I'm not trying to be TMZ here. I'm just a fan who loves the band. So
I know. I mean, I talk with Aaron, he's like a brother to me. All I know is that it's like that guy hasn't taken a break for himself since we started. And like, he's been on the road or in the studio or working every single day since he was 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And, and he's 26 now. And it's like, he's taking a well-deserved time to do some things slowly. And I mean, every time I see him, we hang out, we get lunch, I'll go down, where he is. He comes up where I am. We hang out. Like, he's as happy as can be. And, he and his girl and his dog. And it's like the future of that situation. I don't know. I don't know if he knows. I don't know if anybody knows, but I know Aaron, and he is one of the most creative people I've ever known in my entire life. And, there will probably be a spark at some time. And, and he and I have spoken about many things. So there's no promises. I can't say anything yes or no in any direction. All I know is that Aaron and I enjoy each other's company. And I know that he's in his heart of hearts a creative person.
Awesome. Well, with that, let's jump into side B because we have been talking a lot now. And I'm going to kick off. I get the joy of kicking off side B. And being from New Jersey, I want to show some New Jersey love to start off side B. And I'm going to go to East Brunswick, New Jersey. And that's right down the street for me, about 35 minutes down the road, with a band at the time in 1998 was known as Catch 22, who then became Streetlight Manifesto. This song was recorded by both bands, but I'm going to go with the original 1998 title track, Keys Be Nights, to kick off side B. Just a fun, upbeat, dark lyrically, but fun sing-along. When you listen to the lyrics, you're like, what am I singing? And what am I so upbeat and happy about? It's just one of those great, fun, third wave ska songs. And I love the fact because everyone talked about the ska scene being Orange County. And that was the bulk of it. But New Jersey had some say in this matter. And I love the fact.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Represent Catch 22, Keys Be Nights.
Nice. Well, that actually kind of works with what I was thinking next, which was keeping it East Coast, even though he now lives on the West Coast, is going with the reworking of his album No Dream to Ska Dream, the Jeff Rosenstock song Ska Dream from Ska Dream. I love Jeff. Jeff is what a prolific and talented songwriter and performer. I see Jeff Rosenstock play a few times, and I saw him play just him and an acoustic guitar in front of like 700 people. And it was just as good as if when he played in front of 700 people with the band. Like, he's just phenomenal. And I love Jeff's work all over the place. And he's been, he's important to the ska scene from the late 90s to now too. It's like with, Bomb the Music Industry and Bruce Lee. It's like he's been doing it.
Love the fact that you're going with an influential name here because my next pick is going to jump on that. And I'm going to follow your influential because this is a band that was influential because of where they came from already, which was Op Ivy. But then Rancid, I feel like you can't talk about punk and ska together without bringing up Rancid. So I'm going to go to 1995, my senior year in high school. And Out Come the Wolves, I'm going with Time Bomb, a song that literally every time I hear it, I am brought right back to senior year in high school. The song has such strong memories for me. It's such a catchy, infectious tune. And it's a little different than the third wave ska because Rancid kind of went on their own path. They were definitely leaning more towards the punk side of things. But when they went ska, they brought that second wave sound into the mix, and it worked really, really well, and it still does. Their new album's absolutely incredible. Tomorrow Never Comes. If you haven't heard it, check it out. But for now, 1995, and Out Come the Wolves. I'm going to follow it up with Time Bomb.
Yeah. Okay. Shoot. That changes what I wanted to do because I just got it in my head, and I was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, I know how, because now I know how I want to end this one, which is going to blow your mind. But I always I don't know why, I can't help it. I go back to the old souls, and maybe because we lost him in the last year or so, and he's been such a great, for me, such an important member of the ska community. But Funky Kingston by Toots and the Maytals, like that tune just like you can't help. And then that bass line, and then there's like the drum. What a darn great song.
Unbelievable song. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, following that up, I had a band I wanted to include in this list, and I'm going to include them now, but I'm actually changing the song to fit more of the Funky Kingston vibe. So it's the same band, but a different song. Same album. I was going to go with 2003's Anthem. And I originally had picked Less Than Jake's The Ghost of Me and You, which is one of my favorite heavier fast ska, but coming out of Toots, that doesn't work well. So I'm going to go with The Science of Selling Yourself Short.
Yeah.
Because that song is absolutely fantastic. I have seen Real Big Fish and Less Than Jake on the same bill so many times in the 90s. I feel like you guys were synonymous with each other, touring all the time, it felt like, even though I'm sure there were breaks but it always felt like you guys were just perfect tour mates. Always fun shows, always great music, and a little bit of levity in life, which not a lot of people have. So The Science of Selling Yourself Short.
I love those dudes. They're so great. It's so funny because when we started out, there was, and I don't know how this stuff happens, but there was this thing that was like West Coast, East Coast.
Yes.
Yeah. And like we had heard, people told us, oh, listen, Jake doesn't like Real Big Fish. And we were like, well, that's weird because we love that band. Like, and then we were like, oh, maybe they think we're stupid. I mean, like that was kind of our thought process anyway. We just figured everybody thought we were stupid. And there were a lot of people that were very vocal about thinking we were stupid. So we were like, oh, I bet they're the majority, not the minority there. But then you meet certain people and they're like, I love your band. And you're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Maybe they don't mean it. So yeah, Less Than Jake, when people are like, guys are like, and we're like, we are. And then we played some festival together for the first time. Like, I think Aaron had gone to see them play, but I know the rest of us hadn't seen them. And like, we met the guys and we were like, these are great guys. These are great people. Like, and they seem nice. And they seem to like us. Like, what? And so we joked about it. We were like, oh, are we supposed to fist fight? It was like so stupid. And I was like, let's go have a beer. And like, we watched their show and we're like, what a band. And they watched ours and like, what a band. And it was like, yeah, kind of like this great relationship. I mean, like, I was so honored to be able to play on one of their records. Like the fact that they called me up and they were like, come play on State of Florida. Like it's I don't know. It just, isn't that the name of the record? Or is it's Gonna Fly?
Yeah, Gonna Fly, GNAFLA, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Because I have it listed as actually both. I think the original demo was called State of Florida because I had the demos
Oh,
and then the unmastered versions that I put into my like music library. But yeah, it was so fun. And then to just like hear my horn in Less Than Jake song was just like amazing. They're just great. I love them.
All right. Well, we're back to you to follow up The Science of Selling Yourself Short.
I want to go with this band that I love, Bad Operation, and go with the first song on that record, Perilous. Love it. Absolutely love it. Bad Operation. They're so great. I haven't had a chance to meet those cats yet, but that record's so good. It makes me so happy. I wish I had a great story for those guys. We haven't met yet. So yeah, I mean, I did this show in 2019, actually, where Goldfinger was playing a show and I was still living on the East Coast and John called me to come and play horns for him. And it's where I first met Jer from Scottoon Network and We Are the Union. And that connecting, like I met Reed from We Are the Union then, and I met John Graber, who works a lot, who produced with We Are the Union and works with like No Effects, and also John Feldman and all those bands. And that's where I really got into like, I met Reed there. Catbite was playing that. Kill Lincoln was playing that. I met all of those younger, great, just like super fun ska bands. And then so those Bad Time record bands that I met, and then it opened up to Bad Operation. That's not an interesting story, but that's how I found Bad Operation.
Awesome. Well, I think I'm going to get an interesting story out of my next pick because this is the band that I always like to throw in bands that I think are deeper cuts in every episode, which to you, this won't be a deep cut because it's very familiar to you, but to people that are, I don't want to say they're not massive into the ska scene, but they know enough. This is a song that they may have been introduced to by Real Big Fish on 2009's Fame, Fortune, and Fornication. However, I knew the song from a decade earlier from their album 1999's The Elements of Transition. I want to go with Edna's Goldfish, Veronica Sawyer.
Yeah.
Love the song. This was one of those songs that I was shocked that this band did not get bigger. I was shocked that they did not become one of the mainstays because it was such a fantastic album. And then the band kind of broke up after that. I'd love to know What made you guys decide to cover that song for the album? Because that's not, again, a household song, but it's definitely an amazing and, dare I say, underrated ska punk tune.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was why we decided to cover it. It was like, this band was so fun and we played so many times with them and they were such great people. We just wanted to like bring some attention. And that was kind of always our way, is was like, we want to bring attention to the people who like keep us excited and come up after us and during us. And it was always about participating in the scene. Like it was the scene, and it's like, and the internet was helpful in a lot of ways of spreading the scene and connecting the scene. And we felt an obligation, being somehow blessed and picked to be ambassadors to a degree of the music, as I said before, that we would have done a disservice to ska music and everything that had gotten us to where we were if we didn't try to shine light in other places. I mean, we always tried to take certain ska bands with us, and yeah, that's why. I'm like,
all right,
is there more? No, there's not. I'm still trying to find a next song. But yeah, it's so interesting to participate in something this beautiful and this storied and rich, but it's a responsibility. And I don't like the word responsibility, it's a glorious opportunity, something that we are grateful for 100%. Like, we know it didn't have to be us. It could have been many other bands, and we didn't deserve it more than anybody else deserved it. We were just lucky. And so with that luck needs to come gratitude. And then with that gratitude needs to come action.
Love the mindset, man. Absolutely love it. Well, you have 2 songs left and I've got 1. So I'm struggling for my track 9, but I got to wait to hear what you come up with for track 8, which will swing which way I go.
I mean, I'm like, do I? Ish. It's so hard because there's so many to pick from. And I'm like, okay, it's like, think about your friends. And then, and that's the pressure too. Is it's like, I don't want to let any of my friends down. And it's like, but I have so many. Well, okay. So I would be remiss in my duties if I did not pick a We Are the Union song. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I think, let's do Ordinary Life, because I think that's the one that I played on. It is the one I played on. I don't think, I know. So Ordinary Life off of Ordinary Life by We Are the Union. I love those people. I had Reed play on the remake of Average Man. Just great friends, great band. I've been in a handful of their videos. But yeah, I really love that band. I think Reed is a great songwriter and such a talent. They're just great all around people too.
All right.
And they're of that younger guard that they're keeping things moving.
Yes, they certainly are. And that's now where I struggle, because I only have 1 song left, as do you now. My problem is there's a lot of bands we haven't touched on. And this is the bane of my existence with this show, because after every episode, I do get messages on social media as well as emails saying, wait a minute, how did you do an episode and not include blank? So here I am, but I've got 2 bands that are floating in my head that I feel like if we don't talk about both of them, we're going to do a disservice. However, I would rather talk about the band that is more connected to this discussion in this playlist. And I don't feel, and I'll say both names because I don't want to insult either one. I actually love both bands. No Doubt, which was a huge part of the ska punk scene. There's no 100%. Denying it. They were kind of the torch bearers, and then bringing the female perspective into it. It just opened the doors for other female artists in the ska scene, which I loved. Then you had groups like Say Ferris, which were amazing. They're still out doing their thing. Yeah. But I'm going to go back to the beginning because you mentioned this person all the way at the beginning of our conversation.
Oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just forgot. Oh my God. Now I feel terrible.
You brought up MC Bat Commander, so I gotta go with the Aquabat Super Rad. It's tough because I want to include No Doubt. I feel like I want to include Say Ferris, but I'd love to hear some stories about Real Big Fish and the Aquabats, because that's another pairing I've seen multiple times on tour.
Yeah. I mean, Christian from the Aquabat he's like a big brother to me because his youngest brother was my best friend for many years and still like one of my good friends today. And so I learned a lot from Christian. I mean, I remember seeing the Aquabats when they were like, it was kind of two different bands, and it was a show in someone's house, this girl named Michaela, and they played in the like solarium. It was just like a weird show, and it was just like a bunch of kids sitting on the floor in this house, and they made t-shirts, these really weird t-shirts. I still have it to this day. I mean, I was 13 maybe, and it says Space Monster M with Fresh Curd, and those were the two bands, Space Monster M and Fresh Curd. And actually, if you watch the Aquabat Super Show, at the end of the first season, the big bad guy is Space Monster M. Yeah, and so like they've always been like the greatest, funnest band of all. I mean, they're amazing. And like, again, like how could I have not talked about the Aquabats? And of course, it comes down to the end, and all the bands start flooding into my head. I'm like, oy vey. But yeah, I mean, and to be, it really meant a lot to me, actually, that my last tour with Real Big Fish was in Australia with the Aquabats.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so they were there, and it was like kind of telling because we all kind of started together, and like, and they were there for me. And it was like, I love all those cats. Truth be told, like I want to try to get, like Eagle Bones Falcon Hawk to play on something soon for some of the new stuff. But, maybe get Ricky Fitness. And I like bringing my friends into the Littlest Man Band. I mean, the Littlest Man Band can be whatever I want it to be, for God's sake. And I don't have a permanent band right now. I have like 4 people that are always generally around. But yeah, what a band, what a creative fun. I mean, like, and they're always so surprising when they put out High Five Soup.
Yep.
I remember we were in Australia and Christian was like, hey, can you listen to this? I want to know what you think. And so we were backstage somewhere in Australia. We were just sitting there doing nothing. And I listened to the whole album and I said, I think this is some of your best work to date. Like your voice sounds amazing. Like it's like this stuff is so good. And I feel like I do that every time they put out a record. I feel like I'm like, this is your best work to date. So I love that band. And there are 2 sides to the ska scene. And some of it, and we kind of got shit for this every now and then about not talking politics and social justice. But there were bands doing that. And it wasn't what came naturally to us until later in life, and so we were more this like the party, which is okay. We needed both. And so the Aquabats are very much that like, but they're like, there's a certain amount of like self-reflection and awareness and lighthearted self-deprecation that comes in. It's like, we all need to take things seriously. And sometimes we just got to laugh at stuff because if we take it too serious, it'll put us in the ground.
100%. My 14-year-old's favorite Real Big Fish song, which I probably played slightly earlier than I should have for her, is Another FU song.
Sure.
Just because, again, she just heard it for the first time and started snickering. And as soon as it was over, she goes, can you play that one again? And that's her favorite to this day. And now that she's older, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Whatever. It's cool. But when she first heard it, it didn't dawn on me until halfway through the song that she was in the car. And I'm like, I ripped that Band-Aid off. So I do want to point out, though, one of my close friends, Drew, who is my ska punk friend. We were in a punk band together in the 2000s. We are always texting each other when we hear a new ska song or a new punk song that we think the other person would like. And he texted me this past weekend and he said, how many people do you think realize that Travis Barker played in the Aquabats?
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how many people don't know that little tidbit.
Yeah.
The Aquabats were very influential. They did so much for the scene and so much for the industry. And I love the fact that because their music is family friendly to a certain extent, with the show and everything else, there's an element to that that is introducing younger audiences to this amazing music. So I feel like it's, dare I use the word, gateway drug, musically speaking, of course, for younger people to kind of get into the scene. And I think it's fantastic. So that's why I ended up going with the Aquabats for my close of the evening. But now, Scott, you get the
Daunting.
tough decision of closing out the entire night here.
Okay. I had two perfect endings that I was torn between, but I wasn't going to sweat it because either one. And then I realized every one that I completely forgot to put on this list. I mean, it's like, I worried at the beginning of the thing that I was like, I'm not going to know anything. I'm not going to be able to remember everything. And then, of course, it's like when I have one left, I'm like, oh my gosh. Because I want to show, I'm eclectic. But I also have friends that are just in great band. So, okay, I'm going to say what I was going to do. They're not on the list, but check them out anyway. The first thing I was going to do is there is a version of Stairway to Heaven. Okay. And you're like, what? By Frank Zappa. That is a ska and reggae version of Stairway to Heaven. It is amazing. That's not the one I want to do. I just wanted to say it. Then I was like, you know what? We'll finish it up with one of my all-time favorite reggae artists. It's a good feeling one. This is not the one I want to do either, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's Till I'm Laid to Rest by Buju Banton. You can't not feel good. But that's not what I'm going to do. What I am going to do is go to my dear friends. They've been friends of mine forever. I played in a band called the Knuckle Brothers with their trombone player, toured and played a bunch of shows with a band called My Superhero that their keyboard player is from. The guitar player is from Save Ferris, who were dear friends as well. And it's also led by a female singer who actually was on one of my favorite shows of all time, Parks and Rec. So I got to go with Bite Me Bambi, Let Me Love You. I feel like I would be a bad friend if I didn't, because I don't know Buju, and I'm a huge Frank Zappa fan. But explore Frank Zappa. He uses a lot of ska and reggae all over the place.
Oh, God.
All over the place.
God, yeah.
One of the things that I love about ska and reggae music is finding where its influences are that you wouldn't expect it. I mean, we didn't talk about the Police. We didn't, there's a bunch of bands that we did not talk about. But Bite Me Bambi, I love this band. And I love they're such dear friends of mine. I mean, there's so many bands we didn't talk about. Oh my God. We didn't talk. So many people we didn't talk about.
I'm telling you, Scott, there's a reason why there's volume 2 for mixtapes. So we might have to consider having you back to do a volume 2. I would love to do it.
Oh my gosh. I would. Oh man. Yeah. I'd be down to do. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm unreliable or else I would do this podcast with you. We need no other guests ever again. But yeah. So, but Bite Me Bambi, I mean, there are veterans in that band. They care about it. They're great. My sax player, Edgar Guadiana, who is also in the band. I still say he's my sax player, even though he probably belongs to Twin Temple and the Littlest Man Band and Bite Me Bambi are just borrowing him. But yeah, anyway, so that's what I got to go.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but are there members of Suburban Legends that also weave in and out of the Littlest Man Band as well?
Yeah, so Vince Walker and Chris Luca are both from Suburban Legend. And so, yes.
Now, before I continue with a couple of more questions, I do want to say that Mixtapers, that does conclude side B of our ska punk mixtape, which kicked off with Catch-22's Keysby Nights, Jeff Rosenstock's Ska Dream, Rancid's Time Bomb, Toots and the Maytals' Funky Kingston, Less Than Jake's The Science of Selling Yourself Short, Bad Operations Perilous, Edna's Goldfish, Veronica Sawyer, We Are the Union's Ordinary Life, The Aquabats' Super Rad, and Bite Me Bambi, Let Me Love You. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed tonight in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Now, Scott, I know you alluded to this earlier when we were talking, but what do you have in store moving forward for the rest of the year with the Littlest Man Band, as well as in your music and professional life?
So Littlest Man Band has 2 shows coming up. One, we're doing the Summer Sizzler in Southern California at the Garden Amphitheater in Garden Grove, California with Bite Me Bambi. It's the 3rd annual. It's a big get to do. It's a lot of fun. We're very excited. This is our second time being back. And then we also have a show in Modesto, California called the Maximum Ska and P Fest, which is a big festival. And it's going to be bands like Littlest Band, Loser actually is going to be there. Some other great ska bands like The Odd Advantage, Monkey, The Bracers, Hella, not Hella. It's a very different band. The Hellas. I like Hella too, but 1335, Always Bet on Red, just a slew of bands. So that's going on. I stream on Twitch actually every Tuesday and Friday at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then Wednesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and go for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, sometimes 3. And then, we're just releasing more music. And I've been doing this creative consulting where, I help people with their creative lives or their artistic individuation and stuff like that. I've had some incredible mentors. And so the opportunity to turn around and be someone's mentor it's really fulfilling. And I've had some really great success with people that are like, their lives are transformed, which is weird. I just expected to help people with creativity. And it's like, I just got a message today that we're like, people are starting to understand their own lives and their partners and their relationships and all sorts of stuff. The decision to dive into creativity is we get into our subconscious. We start to see ourselves differently and we're gentler with ourselves and we start to understand ourselves and then others a little easier. So it's really more about learning to like embrace humanity through creative forms than to like try to psychoanalyze ourselves and diagnose something that's just part of the human condition.
Well, I love it. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I've been such a huge fan of your music for so many decades. It's been an absolute honor talking music with you tonight. I thank you for all the wonderful concerts I've seen over the years and all the great music that's a soundtrack to my life. And most importantly, thank you so much for joining me on My Weekly Mixtape tonight, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been an absolute hoot.
Don't forget to connect with My Weekly Mixtape on your favorite social media sites at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to hear the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. If you'd like to support the show, please consider becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. That's all for this week. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, enjoy the tunes.
Hey folks, Stefan Shirazi and Renee Richardson here from the Metallica Report.
And we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, where the best of music and podcasts unite.
We've got something pretty cool for you. We're giving away an exclusive Metallica merch package worth over $250.
That's a whole lot of Scary Guys, skulls, M72, and other sought-after Metallica swag. And we've made it easy for you to win. Follow and share the Metallica Report, and you're in the game. Go to pantheonpodcast.com/Metallica, enter your email, and hit that button to be entered to win.
And just like that, you're eligible for our monthly exclusive Metallica merch package.
And guess what, rockers? You can enter every month, so just do it. And while we love our global brothers and sisters, the lawyers won't let us ship outside the U.S.